All right, here we go. We're back with another weekly Sheep Farm Big Shill Bullshit Platform podcast, hosted on our very own bullshit platform with our big shill mics. People are starting to put that type of thing in chat now. You know, when looking forward to this bullshit production, and stuff like that.
Catchphrase, isn't it? Everyone likes catchphrase.
I think it needs to be, because that's the only way you get out. I was talking to Jeff the other day, and I was saying I learned very early on that if you take the piss out yourself, people just shut up because they don't know what to do, because they know you don't care. And I learned it when I was early in secondary school, when people used to call me names. I used to do monkey impressions, and they just stopped doing it because they just thought I was mad.
I used to get called television head. A big square head.
Right.
And rubber lips.
Yeah.
The thing is,
just off me.
As I've got older, I care less and less and less. And I'm sure most people do, but now I could not give a fuck what anyone thinks about me.
I don't know. You're quite sensitive, apparently.
Yeah, I'm not.
So you keep telling me.
You asked me, missus.
Yeah. No, I know you're not. You keep making out you're an arty-farty, limp-wristed twat, but you're not really.
Well, I am arty-farty. You don't have to be limp-wristed, though, do you?
No.
Or a twat.
Anyway, the format is simple. We release a minimum of 4 shows a month. Members get full podcast plus download. Non-members get part 1 plus download at sheepfarm.co.uk. All shows are released on Saturdays, apart from Christmas Day. We're going to release a couple on Christmas Day. I'll come to that in a bit. Always on our private bullshit platform at sheepfarm.co.uk. But we do put part 1 on Podomatic, that send it out to distribute it out, whatever you want to say, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, and Apple. Subscribe to the website, email us, info@sheepfarm.co.uk, or join us on Instagram with the son of shotgun nostrilled brother of mine.
Mm-hmm. I'm not really that active on it at the moment because I've been too busy with my sculpture shop. So I don't have those spare moments to troll through it, through all the shit that everyone sends me. Just speaking of Jeff, he messaged you and he messaged me as well. You know, he said he was laughing because I said there must be
I call it stalking.
Stalking. There must be some friendly Bigfoots and some nasty Bigfoots. It's funny when you think about it, though. The fact that that's a normal conversation to us, isn't it? Talking about discussing Bigfoots and whether they're tied in with UFOs or not. Not the fact that they exist or not, just are they tied into UFOs or not? That's like a normal topic of conversation, isn't it?
Normal topic of conversation for quite a long time, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be anything. We could talk about all those giant, like when we talked to Guy Anderson about those giant titans. You know, we're not going. Ooh, what? We're just going. Do you think that? Wow, yeah, bloody hell. Nothing is off the table, is it?
No, notes off the table. We'll try and keep it that way anyway. And that's why when you have guests on, and I'm not thinking anybody in particular, that some of the stuff. Again, you're not going to agree with everything a guest says, but that doesn't say you're going to fall out with them either. You know, I think we've been brought up to think that if you don't agree with somebody, that means you fall out with them. There's
not even anything wrong with having a heated debate.
No.
As long as you're not being a knob.
Yeah, as long as you can just shake hands on it. I mean, we were talking the other day, and there are discussion points and there are dividing points, aren't there? So you can have a discussion about something, yeah. I see people that have fallen out over like football, just nonsense. Yeah. Just having a discussion in a pub about a player who they think's a dick or a good player or whatever it might, and they'll fall out. That's just ridiculous. If there's somebody in a tower somewhere watching down on a CCTV going, we've got
the plan's working.
They'll be banging pots and pans when next time we press that COVID button.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So the dividing points are like 2020. That's a dividing conversation, isn't it? With people, you know. To me and you having a conversation, not a dividing point. Gaza, that's a dividing point. Ukraine, probably, you know. Whether you jab your kids, that's another one. What I'm trying to say is these are things that defeat people because they're life-changing events, if you like. Whereas discussion points, you shouldn't fall out on discussion points. It's pointless. It's absolutely senseless, really.
Well, since the 2020 nonsense, especially, you have realised. I mean, we always talked about divide and conquer, like a lot of people did, but since then, I mean, it's another level, isn't it? Well, it's not another level. It's made you realise how sharp that line was of the divide and conquer thing, and how much they did it over and over and over again. Yeah, it's never ending, isn't it?
It's never ending.
The old divide and conquer. Which goes back to Roman times, isn't it?
Yeah,
probably before.
Yeah,
whatever that means.
Yeah. Wouldn't divide and conquer Chinese thing?
I don't know. I thought it was Roman. I might be wrong.
Yeah, it might be wrong. Might be right.
Bread and circus as well. I think that's Roman. But who knows? Who knows where it came from? Who knows if it's even?
Who knows if it's even any of them? Yeah. That's what I mean about taking stuff too seriously. You know, I mean, we've been called names by people who supposedly do podcasting and are into called names. It sounds a bit Wendy-ish already, doesn't it? But what I mean by that is by people who are into finding the truth, if you like, and have their own podcast. I don't understand that. To be fair, just get on with your own shit, man. Not that I've heard anything this week. It's been quite a clear week.
So what are you moaning about?
It's only Monday, though. It's only Monday.
You're making problems that don't exist.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. There is get on with your own stuff. I quite enjoy doing my own research. Quite enjoy doing podcasts sometimes.
There is a bit of human nature in there. There is a bit of human nature in there, though, isn't there? We do like to fucking moan as humans. I mean, and we do like that. You know, you find it in an office or a work situation when everything's going right, and someone will make it go fucking wrong. Do you know what I mean? Just because it's all going right. You know, you do. There's a bit of human nature in there. I don't know why. Sure, someone could explain it on a psychological level.
Anyway, I just want to, before we leave this intro, I want to talk about the releases that we've got going on over the holidays. So this Saturday, we recorded about a couple of weeks ago now, with Chris Thrall, the ex-Marine, fantastic guy, great chat we had with him. Look, we've had 2 good chats now in the last 4 or 5 weeks with Chris.
Yeah. Got quite emotional.
It did get quite emotional. Me and you did.
I did. If you want to see me and Don Blub,
it'll be on YouTube. And but that shows how real stuff is. You know, you don't have to hide away from it. I'm
not ashamed of blubbing.
I'm not neither. That's all the laugh and joke and cry and whatever. Yeah, it's all the same thing. But you know, Chris tells his story.
It's quite harrowing, some of it, isn't it?
Yeah. And but he's one of them guys who bears his soul, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Not wrong with that as well.
I think we do as well. I mean, we'll say anything. We don't care, do we?
Yeah. It's
pretty much open book.
Yeah. It's not that you don't care. It's more that, isn't that why we're doing this? To release the tension, if you like, of what's going on in the madness that we're living through. And again, that were like what was said at the beginning when I said to you, I want to do a podcast. It's basically going to be like us having a conversation on phone. On phone.
On phone.
So this week, that'll be 20th. We're going to be releasing a podcast. This is the intro for Chris Thrall. On the 25th, which is Christmas Day, we're going to release a podcast we released a couple of months ago now in October with Matt Sergiu. Me and Matt decided to do an intro. I thought it was going to be about 5 minutes, but obviously Matt were involved, so it were an hour. And I were involved, obviously, so it were an hour. So the intro is actually a podcast on its own. I thought we'd do a podcast, right? I'll just layer it onto the beginning of what we recorded.
Right.
And it ended up an hour on its own. So
how long's the whole thing then?
3 hours? Yeah.
You're releasing the whole lot on Christmas?
Yeah, Christmas Day. So the intro will be a separate one, so it'll be one after the other. Mike Williams is releasing them on his podcast as well on Christmas Day.
Is it?
On Sage Quay as well. So they were good as well, weren't they? The one you were involved with, that one were good. So, and then on the Saturday after, which I think is the 23rd, Is it the 3rd? No, the
Saturday.
27th. Sorry, Saturday's the 27th. We're gonna release the one we recorded with Sergio Quay about the doors. I know some of you have probably seen that already, but that'll go out on YouTube. So if you don't have to catch it on the website, it'll be on YouTube. All of those podcasts, apart from today's, the second part will be on our sheepfarm.co.uk bullshit platform. But all of the other ones, they'll be released as a whole podcast.
So there'll be plenty of bullshit to listen to over the Christmas holidays.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I tell you one thing I keep forgetting to mention. That thing I did with Jake Fern, because it's on YouTube. Only 45 minutes of it. That 1,000 words thing. So if anyone hasn't listened to it, it's on YouTube.
Watched it. You can watch it. You don't have to just
you can watch it. Yeah. You can watch me droning on a load of shite. But more to support Jake's thing that he's doing, to be fair. I think it's had about 1,000 views, 1,500 views.
Right.
But it's on, if you just put in 1,000 words, you'll find it's on UK column now. But it's on YouTube. Just to try and get him some momentum going.
Yeah. We're getting now on UK column.
Yeah, been on UK column.
We're going out at on.
Yeah.
You keep that one for best.
What?
Is that you going out at?
This hat?
No, that pink one.
Oh, that one. It's not pink, it's maroon.
Oh, wait for that. Yeah, that maroon one.
It's maroon. No, that's not one of my best hats.
You look like
a casual hat.
One of our crew in America with that on.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That old soul boy look.
Yeah, that look like somebody out at 1930s. If it were a black and white picture, you would fit in like out at 1930s.
I don't think people wear enough hats.
No,
I like a hat. I've always worn hats.
Yeah, I have. Well, mine are mainly baseball hats out there. Flat caps used to wear as well, but
I can't wear baseball hats. They look fucking weird. I'd like to be able to wear
hats. Like them bus boy hats. I've got one of them, a couple of them.
I like these ones, and I like the not pot pie.
I like the pot pie, the Blues Brothery type one as well. Trilby. No,
it's a fedora, like a fedora trilby. Yeah.
You just feel a bit of a knob in Huddersfield in a fedora.
I don't. Well, I don't feel one. I might look one.
Yeah. I don't think they go quite well. Maybe if you were in Chile or something like that. Anyway, okay, we'll leave it there before we rabble on for another 10 minutes about shite.
I've still got some calendars left as well.
From 2025.
No, I've got 2026 calendars. If anyone wants one as a Christmas present for anyone, I've got some more arriving and some badges. Yeah. Right. They've gone really well. It's a good thing to have, though. Well, it's got 12 bits of artwork on it, and it's I always buy a calendar every year.
To think and all, I used to call you a dateless bastard.
Dateless bastard.
Yeah.
On that note.
Yeah. On that note, we're gonna go. Merry New Year. Bye. All right. Welcome back to another Sheep Farm podcast. I think this will be episode 258, but it could change.
259.
We're back to future, if you like, or forward to future. We're doing this in advance of when it's going to be released. What do you say, Chris?
259.
Do you reckon it'll be 259?
Well, if we're doing what you just said, yeah.
Yeah, all right then. Yeah, I'll go with what you're saying because generally I do get a bit kafooled with it.
I write them all down as we go along.
Today we've got a Chris Thrall on. We appeared on his podcast the other week, a couple of weeks ago now.
You didn't just appear, you blew it out the water, lads. What a brilliant chat. My subscribers absolutely loved it. It's coming up for 14,000 views.
Really? Is it?
Oh, really? I know, Chris. Bloody hell.
Right, wow.
I really enjoyed it. It was fantastic.
Yeah. I watched it 13,699.
We should probably do a live one, an amalgamated live one at some point, maybe.
I'll tell you what, you can be regulars on my show. You're more than welcome. You know, we're the sort of open-minded chat that people really appreciate in this day of subterfuge and Orwellian nightmare shit.
We actually, me and Chris did about 3 years ago 3 episodes on George Orwell, about 9 hours, wasn't it, Chris? Of documentary type podcast on him, on his genealogy, his life in the military intelligence and all sorts of other stuff.
Whether he even exists or not.
Whether he even existed or not, because there's no actual videos of him, even though he spent most of his career at the BBC. So I'm not saying he didn't exist, whether it was just some persona made up, because that certainly wasn't his name.
The most fascinating thing, and only I know this because I worked it out. There you go, feather in my cap. Is what, you know, the cabal, they own the publishing industry. So Stephen King, he was a struggling school teacher, struggling author. You know, all these manuscripts, he used to throw them in the bin because he wasn't like particularly brilliant or anything. And then he wrote the old satanic Carrie, with lots of blood, guts, gore, and the occult in it, basically, or the dark side of the occult. And he woke up the next morning, had a $300,000 advance. And let's not forget, this was like 50 years ago now, or you know,
the 70s, wasn't it? Yeah,
40 to 50 years ago. That was an awful lot of money. And then you get your J.K. Rowling. And she wrote her story on the
back of a fag packet, a napkin, was it a napkin?
On napkins down. She said, I was unemployed. I'm like, listen, to write a book, you've got to be unemployed because it's hard work. It's, you know, but the point is, why did she become the biggest selling author overnight? And I'm not putting her work down or her. She's an absolutely beautiful human being. But because it's about the occult, it's about that dark, you know, that darkness again, and getting it into the kids early. So, you know, she landed on the golden square without even probably realizing it. And how come Orwell, everyone knows of 1984, even if they haven't read it? It's because it tells you the 3D materialistic version of what's going on and what's going to happen. How cabal, call that New World Order, call it the merchants, call it, you know, Khazarian
300, whatever.
Yeah. It's not hard to see who these individuals are. Just look at who owns all the corporations that do the stuff like the medical scam that we all went through and all that kind of stuff, you know. And, of course, what it tells you is the descent into darkness from a materialistic perspective. It doesn't tell you the way out of it. And it doesn't tell you that the way they're bringing this new world order in is through energy, vibration, and frequency, the currency of life, like the control knobs on life, like when you tune your old radio in.
Yeah, me and Chris were talking about the towers that put up during 2020 yesterday, weren't we, Chris? Whether they're obviously for different reasons than other than running your iPhone from, and they obviously are. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. I can't talk about that, but I can talk about chopsticks. And wouldn't it be great if people went round the neighbourhood putting up chopsticks without the public's permission, right, for nefarious purposes, and the public went, do you know what? We're going to just knock those chopsticks back down again, you know?
Yeah.
Folks, please don't go out and take it out on chopstick. They've done nothing to you, and they'll get us in trouble with certain platform. But
you know, one of the builders of them certain chopsticks, as you called them, is Ericsson, and Ericsson are owned by the Wallenberg family, and the Wallenberg family are known as the Rothschilds of Sweden.
Absolutely, yeah. The Wallenbergs,
and they owned AstraZeneca.
Yeah, Eric's son. So imagine if Eric's missus had just said, "No, not tonight, love. I've got a headache." We wouldn't have this new world order bullshit, would we? You know,
it wouldn't matter. AstraZeneca would make some sort of potion that Eric would exist.
Before we all get carried away, I would be interested in hearing Chris's story and about his YouTube channel
and his journey. Journey. Is that what you mean?
That's the same as a story. That is fine.
Yeah. Well, no,
I'll try and tell you. I'll try and tell you in
Christian at times. Hurt my feelings.
Fucking idiot sometimes. Isn't it?
Only brothers can get away with talking to each other like that.
No, but if you listen to Chris, I said I'd like to know Chris's story, and Dom said, or his journey. What I mean, pretty sure they're pretty parallel there, aren't they?
Yeah. Why don't I tell you my experience?
Yeah. Oh, your experience. That's even better. Let's go with that one. Now, just how you got to this point where you're doing and a bit about your podcast, just in case people haven't listened to you, that's all.
Yes. Okay. I'll try and do this in record time. I'm Chris Thrall. I had your archetypal upheaval in childhood. Parts of it highly, highly unpleasant. Can we just leave it there?
Yeah, of course we can, mate.
As a result, unbeknown to me, I carried this thing called unresolved childhood trauma. Wouldn't have even known what it was if you told me about it. Only understand it now because obviously I'm educated and sophisticated. But looking back, I'd say it's probably a big driver of me joining the Royal Marines Commandos at 18. I was homeless, living in a Renault 12, and my mate knocked on the window one day. His dad was a Falklands hero. And he was like, all right, Chris, yeah, I've just joined the Royal Marines. I've been up to Lympstone Commando for this 3-day course. And they made us like fall backwards off the diving board. And then we had to run this endurance course. And then, And he said, it was tough, but I got through it. But of course, you could never do it. Well, not the cleverest thing to say to an angry young man. So interesting life lesson here. So what I did, we were drunk at his New Year's Eve party. And I left the party in one of those kind of, deep soul searching, I'm drunk, let's have a melancholy, that word.
I don't think I can say that, actually.
Yeah, let's have a mellow, self-respective, let's feel a bit sorry for myself moment. And I walked out the party and I thought, right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to run around the Dartmoor Rock. There's a rock out there at a place called Yelverton called the Rock. It's like a meteorite that's crashed to Earth and it looks bizarre. That's one theory. Others say it's a volcanic rock. For the purpose of this, I shall refer to it as the Rock, right? It was half a mile from my mate's house. I thought if I can run up around that and back 1 mile, even in my drunken inebriated state, I will march through the door of the Royal Navy and Royal Marines recruiting office after the Christmas holiday and I will sign on the dotted line. If I can't run this 1 mile and I give up, I'm not going to waste the Royal Marines' time, right? So I ran it, and there I was wheezing from being a smoker, and I hadn't run since school, and I was, everything I'd done in life to this point. I failed my O-levels, I failed my GCSEs or whatever they were, my college rather. I was desperately unhappy. I'm now homeless for the second time. The first time I was homeless, I was 15, wandering the streets in my school uniform. And, I didn't have a lot of like umpata in me, instilled in me, you could say. And as I got halfway, I approached this rock. I was absolutely hanging out. Wheezing, pain racking my body. Everything said, stop, give up, stop now. And in that moment, I was able to do that, that thing of reaching inside myself and saying, do you know what, Chris, if you give up now, you'll be giving up for the rest of your life, son. And that was it. That was enough to make me just hang in there. And I ran my mile. And, the rest was history. I served in the Royal Marines, my first operate.
Well, what sort of year were we talking when you joined, Chris?
Sorry, I've got to have a drink. Excuse me. This was 1988. I was 18.
Right.
I passed out with my original troop because I was an angry young man, and I just took every day as it came, Dom. I wasn't thinking about girlfriends back home. I wasn't thinking about the hardship that is the toughest military course on the planet, the longest and most arduous infantry training on the planet. I didn't think none about it. I just thought, right, what we got to do today, I'm not leaving. I am not going home, right? So I passed out with my original troop, which was, you know, that was a sign that I had more in me than the people had believed. I went out to the Northern Ireland conflict. It was a particularly bloody year, 1989. It was a bit of an anomaly. It was the 20th anniversary of troops in the province. And as such, the IRA were out to do all they could to make a bloody noise, and they did. All started off quite quiet, almost lulled us into a false sense of security. I thought nothing was going to happen. And suddenly, in the course of one day, we went out the main gate of the camp. The IRA bombed the back gate. We went in, regrouped, went back out a few hours later to protect the polling stations. It was voting. And of course, being a British process, the British vote, the IRA were out to disturb it all they could. We got to a patch of grass up in the Ardoyne, a hardened Republican area, certainly at that time. And as we broke out into diamond formation and started to cross this park, an IRA gunman opened up at us from the back of the Ardoyne with a Kalashnikov of all things. It's probably our saving grace because it's not a sniper rifle. The next thing we just heard, and I looked down and the grass was pinging up at my feet where he was trying to take me out. And we ran. We could just hear our brick commander, that's your team commander, your small team of 4. We actually have 5 in this case because we had a guy from the regiment before us.
Would he be a corporal, or what position would he be?
He was a corporal. Yeah. The guy from the regiment before, I think he was a sergeant. He'd stayed behind from after his unit went back to the UK. He'd stayed behind to train the new guys coming in, right? So we had a bit of knowledge on the ground. It was him that said, "We won't go down this alleyway. It's notorious for improvised explosives. We'll cut across the park," right? And all you could hear was our commander shouting, "Take cover, take cover." And instantly, you could hear that ricocheting off all the walls around the park, our cocking mechanisms going back. We legged it, dived behind this outbuilding, almost like on top of each other to get out, to escape these rounds coming in. And as I look back, our tail end Charlie, who I refer to as Jock in my book, Eat and Smoke, he sparked out on the ground, like literally out. So I was the first aider, and anyone that knows Royal Marines training is you're trained to run out and pick up your buddy in a fireman's carry, or drag them into cover. That's your sort of priority. So I started to run back for him. My team were like, we're just, you're kind of like operating in shock, but it's just what you have to do because it's a shocking situation. And the team's like, "Chris, get down, down." And I'm thinking, I can't do, I can't do that. Unfortunately, my decision was made for me. As I started running back to Jock, he regained consciousness and he looked up and I could see his eyes. And I was about 30 yards away. I could see the shock in his eyes, and his equipment was all spread around him, which was bizarre. He leaped up, grabbed his rifle, grabbed his electronic equipment, and just carried them in his hand and come running over, collapsed behind this small outbuilding. He's saying, "Chris, I'm hit. I'm ripping open his combat jacket, his parachute smock. I'm ripping open the Aniba vest underneath, which is like your flak jacket with a bulletproof fiberglass plate in it. And I'm like, "Jock, you're not hit. You're not hit. I can't find any holes, mate." He's gone, I'm hit. So by this time, this had gone back and forward on the radio. The command, our corporal had put the contact in and said casualties. Now this guy's come back to life. He's like, just make that no casualties. Now he's screaming he's hit. He's like, could you make that a casualty again? Now I'm screaming he's not hit. It's like, don't think. And even I could hear our OC our commanding officer back at the barracks, shouting down the phone, "Corporal, have you got a casualty or not?" And it turned out that one round had gone through the sling on his weapon. One round had taken the antenna off his equipment, and the third round had hit him, not in the fiberglass plate, the bulletproof plate. It hit him actually in the vest, so just fiberglass wadding. It'd gone through his vest, come back out, and landed in the pocket of his parachute smock, right? And that is why when it hit him, it had spun him around so hard, all his kit had flown off. And that's the first 3 rounds. So 1, 2, 3, bang. The gunman then thought, right, next guy, that's me. And there was another, I think it was 8 or 9 rounds fired. It might even have been. So because I was running, I escaped the 6 rounds. And I should say that Jock, refused to get in an ambulance, patrolled back in with us, and that was a sort of memorable day. And cut a long story short, I did Arctic warfare training up in the Arctic Circle. I did underwent para training, so parachute training to become a paratrooper in the Marines version of a paratroop train rank. And I was part of a high security detachment on board an aircraft carrier for about 12 months. And that was amazing. It was the first ship. It was HMS Invincible, the first ship to have women on board. And to say it was a bit of a festa, a bit of a party would be a sort of understatement. And we actually sailed to Barbados. And I tell you what, it was just like a holiday atmosphere on this whole ship. And it was, some of us, struck up relationships, could you say, with the fairer sex, and shenanigans were going on, you could say. But it was amazing. Anyway, I then got involved in a business. I'd had a good stint in the Marines. It had done me well as a young man who was directionless. But after sort of 4 years, I thought, this is run its legs now for me. I want something more out of life. Not that, there's anything wrong if people stay in the military. I just thought, I just don't want to just do military stuff. I want to go traveling. I want to be a millionaire. I want to, buy a Porsche and all this kind of stuff. So I started a business. I was a network marketer for an organization called Quorum International, which marketed these high-tech consumer electronics. I started my own little company called the Max Tech Group. And before I know it, I'd sold a whole load of these products to all my fellow Marines, and I'd gone up the promotion ladder. The next thing I knew, I got put in touch with a guy in Hong Kong, Vance Lee, absolutely lovely bloke, rest in peace. And I said, Vance, it's Chris. Flash told me to give you a call because you're in the military police together. He was in the British Army in Hong Kong, was Vance. He was Hong Kong Chinese, but in the British Army over there. I said, you know about networking, do you? He's like, yeah. I said, well, I've just signed up with this company, Quorum International. I'm a silver executive distributor already. I've only got gold and diamond, and then I'm a multi-millionaire then. And he's like, yeah, send you a distributor number right away. I was like, what, you don't want to? He's like, no, just send me. So I sent him my distributor number. He went down the office himself in Causeway Bay in Hong Kong. Went up in a lift, walked in, said, I'm Vance Lee. I've got the largest network for Amway in Hong Kong, right? That's some going, right? I want to sign up for this Quorum International under Chris Thrall. So whilst I was in the UK seeing my time out in the military, which is 18 months, Vance is building the biggest network in the Asia Pacific, not just for me, but the biggest in Quorum International. We were heralded as the next, millionaires. And for anyone watching, give me a bit of slack here. I was 23 years old. I thought all that shit was important then. You know, I've learned the error of my ways. I will be making a public apology on Twitter tomorrow.
I think you should
morning.
whip yourself with nettles.
Yes. Oh, well, I do that anyway, so that's not really a punishment.
That's what everybody wants at that age, though, Chris, isn't it? That's what everyone's
yes. Like. And so fast forward, so I left the military. I went out to Hong Kong. The Holy Ghost was talking to me on the train saying, Chris, probably not the best thing to be smoking a doobie out the train window when you're off to run an international business. This could end in tears, mate, right? Furthermore, alarm bells were ringing because that $1 million business that I built, and we were turning over $100,000 a month at one point. The money I made was 2.5 times what I was making in the military for 1 month. It's quite short-lived, I should say. It had all collapsed. The products they'd been great in the beginning. These personal attack alarms, every girl wanted one. You know, blokes were buying them for their partners, but when you bought one, that's you don't need two, do you? You know, and so everything just kind of died, and they couldn't bring out products fast enough for us. So as a result, I had no choice but to walk away from what essentially was like 3 years hard work by that stage. I wasn't bothered. I think serendipity, I'm not going to lose sleep. I turned around in that office in Causeway Bay, walked out into Hong Kong, and thought, right, what to do now? Fast forward 7 months later, I'm chronically addicted to crystal methamphetamine. I'm phasing in and out of clinical psychosis, so madness. And I'm working as a nightclub doorman in a club in Wan Chai, which is your Susie Wong territory.
What year are we talking here, Chris?
This was
Roughly.
96.
That's strange because I was there in Hong Kong in 95, 96. I think it was 95, November 95.
You were there.
Yeah, only for a short period of time. Yeah.
Yip Kai Foon, do you remember that incident?
No, I was there. I actually saw a mate. The reason I'm saying this, I saw a mate from Huddersfield working on a door in a club. Who were called Flipper because he had massive feet. And I said, okay, now Flipper, I haven't seen you for years. Anyway, and look, it's a different story, mate. Sorry. Crack on.
No, I'll just track back a bit. So this is the third time I've been in Hong Kong. Right. I took myself there on one leave because all the lads wanted to go on an indulgence flight, which basically means the military pay for it for you. And they all called off. Well, I'd watched Double Impact with Jean-Claude Van Damme by that stage. There's no way you're stopping me from going to the Hong Kong, you know, to fight it out with a bloody gangsters. I'll give me some of that, please, right? So that was the first time, and that was probably 93-ish. And there was a gangster called Yip Kai Foon who was running up and down the streets of Hong Kong whilst I was there, with his gang carrying Kalashnikovs, robbing jewelry stores, right? New Year's Eve, I went to go out with a matlow because I used to crash in the Tamar building, which was owned by the British military. It's the military barracks over there. It's called Prince of Wales Barracks. And I went out and say again.
A nice ring to it, Prince of Wales Barracks.
Yes, not called that now. It's called the People's, you know, province of China or whatever they refer to.
I thought it'd be called Jimmy Savile Towers.
Yeah. Now then, I've a letter here from a young man called Chris. He says, "Dear Jim, please could you fix it for me to go to Hong Kong?" So anyway, yeah, that night I went out with a matlow. This is my first trip to Hong Kong. We came out of a club in Lan Kwai Fong, a club called Mad Dogs, and there's 21 people dead in the street in front of us.
Fucking hell. And
chaos everywhere. I say street in front, it was one or two streets over, but chaos everywhere, blue flashing lights, just everything. We were too drunk to work out like what was going on. There's just like bodies and ambulances and all this sort of stuff. And the matlow just went, I think there's been a fight. The Chinese always like overreact. And I was like, oh, okay. And one until I was on the Star Ferry the next morning, and a person in the seat opposite flicked up their South China Morning Post, and it said 21 revelers killed, 21 people crushed to death in New Year reveling, right? So fast forward to my experience over there. I'm working for the 14K, world's most notorious triad crime brotherhood. I'm just their doorman, by the way. There's nothing grand. I needed a job. They needed a doorman. They took on white guilo or foreign devil doorman because we understood the clientele coming in and out. We could stop the fights. And Chinese have a very big thing about face. Prime example, one day a customer threw a glass of water over the Dilo. The Dilo's big brother. He's the gang leader of that section of Wan Chai. Not a person you throw water over, not if you like your fingers and toes, do you know what I mean? My job would be to step in and go, mate, just come here a minute. That guy that you've just doused is quite an important guy around here. And you see, if you look over there, do you see them 8 guys there, all lined up like foot soldiers, staring at you like they're going to kill you? Well, they are, right? And that's, the 14K. So it was an interesting time. I got incredibly unwell. I saw a side to life that was incredibly dark. Just some of the depravity in Hong Kong is insane. I ended up living in squalor. My sort of seminal moment was trying to crawl across a cable between 2 skyscrapers. I was so unwell. I believed in my mind that all my commando training was to get me across this wire. And if I could crawl across this wire, all of my hopes and dreams and everybody I'd ever met in my life would be at the other side waiting for me. And that's my inner child, isn't it? My damaged, broken inner child crying out to be acknowledged and loved.
It was trying. Oh, sorry, Chris. Go.
But bizarrely, Chris, you see, that's like you're trying to recreate the rock thing as well. Maybe.
Yeah, the rock thing was just like,
but that one worked.
I can't give this up because I'll be giving up all my life, and I've only got, I can't give my parents the satisfaction of calling me a loser.
And it's almost like you tried to maybe recreate it with that wire thing.
Yeah.
In a very surreal kind of way, I suppose.
So I came back to the UK, incredibly unwell still, but because they didn't have drugs as strong as crystal meth in the UK, the strongest thing was something called base amphetamine at the time, that my psychosis naturally drifted away. And after 3 days, you'd think I was completely back to the normal Chris, except my psyche's taken the biggest battering. I was set up to be murdered by the Hong Kong triads. At least that's in my mind at the time what I 100%, utter traumatic fear on a level when you're going to die. It's just like, oh my God, your mouth just starts producing this metallic saliva, and everything goes like asinine white, and you're like, oh, this is it. And in that moment, it's quite funny actually. In that moment, I thought, do you know what? I'm a Royal Marines commando, so fuck them. I'll go with a smile on my face. Thank you very much. And I honestly, that's the God's honest truth. I was like, you think I'm not begging for fucking mercy. So come back to UK. Wasn't long before I thought I'll sell me stereo, get 10 quid. I'd go round my mate Simon's place. Simon, rest in peace, because I knew Simon would have bass to sell. And that was it. That was the, I wasn't ready to relinquish that lifestyle yet. My journey, my lesson was still going. And what happened is it ended up with me living in my house in the UK, which I'd given up in Hong Kong. I came back to find out that my dad and my uncle had paid the interest on the mortgage just so I wouldn't lose it, right? So I still had this roof over my house. My uncle was still paying the interest on the mortgage, so I didn't lose it. We couldn't make the payments on the mortgage. I'd smashed it up from top to bottom inadvertently through just being off my head, whenever I could be. I'd get my money from the benefits people. I'd cycle like a maniac down to a pub. It's called the Blue Monkey in Plymouth. I knew everybody in there. They knew me. They also knew what I was going in there for, was that stuff. There's your 70, 80 quid. There's like all my money for a fortnight. But I got 7 grams of the good stuff now. Good stuff. Yeah. And I'd go back and I'd just be manic for like 4 days, 5 days, 6, just not sleeping, not eating at all, not even hardly drinking some days. And it was like, for someone who's probably a bit ADHD anyway, it was the wrong thing to be getting high on. It made me so confused and tired and hallucinating that I just ended up smashing up my house and everything. I'd try and like fix the TV, and I'd end up just breaking the TV to pieces, and I was living in squalor, and everyone had left my life, and I'm not saying I blame them, and no one understood addiction or mental health back then anyway. And I'm emaciated. I've got track marks all up my arm from just ramming a blunt needle. The desperate need to just get high above all of this depression. I used to be a handsome Royal Marines commando driving a brand new BMW with a mobile phone when nobody even knew what they were, right? Again, I was 23, remember, right? That was important back then.
I don't actually think people realise the small space between your life prior in your BM and your mobile phone, for instance, and where you were there. There's not a big gap. It doesn't take many steps. Mate. No, but it doesn't take many steps either, does it, to fall into that?
No.
I'll call it a trap, but fall into that trap.
One day I woke up, I'm shivering, I'm freezing cold on the floor, I'm just in my boxer shorts, and I've been unconscious for hours. I don't know how long. I wake up, I've got a screwdriver in my hand, and I'm like, right, who am I? I'm kidding you not. When you haven't slept for like 7, 8 days, 6 days, 5 days, what you can't. It shatters your memory. I'd have to sit there going, right, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? Chris, isn't it? It's Chris. Chris, someone, can't remember. I'm Chris Thrall. I'm a ex-Marine. Right. Okay. Screwdriver in my hand. It was like a really rubbish episode of Columbo. I don't recommend watching that episode. And then I work it out. I was so desperate not to crash asleep, because when I crashed, that would signal the end of my binge. I'd have to wake up in chronic depression then, and I'd have to wait for days. It might be, 13 days, a week, whatever, till my money came in again. I could cycle down the pub madly again, and I knew tomorrow I'm just going to wake up in such chronic depression. I'll be so zapped and exhausted. I'll have to roll over, go sleep again for 3 days. Then I'll wake up. I'll be so ravenously hungry, like a wild animal. I'll have to make that trip down to the supermarket, sketchy as hell, literally feeling so out of sorts with life, hiding from people that because you can't have a conversation in that. You're broken. I'd shoplift Bovril and supermarket brand chocolate bars. I was so naive. I didn't think to shoplift the nice chocolate bars. I'd shoplift the cheap stuff. It's like I was doing them a favour. They got me back though with all that COVID bullshit with the spots on the floor, didn't they? Fuckers.
I can't remember that, Chris. It's just a figment of my imagination now.
So, and I'd have £1.87 to spend on my fortnightly shop. That's got to last me the next fortnight till my money comes in, or week, or whatever it was. So I'd buy the bulk items of 17p porridge and 16p pasta, and a 8p slice of the shittest, most chemical white loaf you can imagine. And I'd go back and I'd put porridge and pasta together in a pint glass. I put as much milk as I could spare because, you know, we've got 2 litres there when it's gone, or 4 litres when it's gone, it's gone. And I'd put like 20 spoons of sugar in for the energy, put it in a microwave on slow, and then I'd eat that. The taste of porridge and pasta, pure shit carbohydrate, going into a body that hasn't eaten for days and is emaciated. You're like a rabid wild animal. You're like, you cannot you're having like this ecstatic feeling as you're eating it. You're getting waves going up and down through your body. You're so desperately craving calories, and that, you know, that's how I lived. I wrote a book about it called 40 Nights, because this was my 40 nights in the wilderness, my dark night of the soul. And I put the screwdriver down and I thought, oh, remarkably, I had about 50p in my wallet. And that was enough to go down the corner shop and get a pasty. Because I don't know if you know anything about people that live in Devon, we only eat pasties.
Yeah, I've heard that, mate. I've heard that, yeah.
They're bloody lovely, me answer.
In fact, I came down there once and I went into I forget, you're talking in 90s here, and me and a mate of mine were staying down there, and a guy came into this takeaway, I think it was a fish and chip shop, and he'd eaten a slug and he had out fucking bits of slug down here, pissed up. Obviously, he'd been drinking cider as well.
Eating a slug.
He'd eaten a slug. Somebody said to him, they knew his name, and said, "What's that down your face?" He said, "I've just eaten a slug." Pissed up.
I've got drunk, but I've never eaten a slug.
Yeah,
I've done the same thing.
Sorry, Chris, what was the screwdriver for then?
I'll come on and tell you that. I've got to tell you my slug story.
Right, no, go on. I thought you'd put it.
Yeah, one time I went down to Cornwall camping on my own. This is really sad, but it wasn't really. You know, it's life's life, isn't it? I took my little 2-man tent, my head torch. I took a cooker. I don't know why, because there's no way I was going to eat anything, not with the ecstasy pills that I had in my pocket. I went down there and I just sat in my tent on my own, listening to music, drinking supermarket lager and popping pills. And at one point I did get a bit tired, so I had a little nod, and when I woke up, I reached outside the tent where I'd left my can of beer. I was really clever. I figured if I leave the can outside the tent, it'll be like keeping it in the fridge,
yeah.
even though it's the heat of summer. And I went like that. Of course, a slug had crawled, literally, it hadn't even got inside the can. It was still stuck in the spout, and I popped that one. It's probably more healthy than the pills, in fairness, let's be honest, right?
Yeah. And the beer.
But no, I got a fish and chip story as well. I've got to tell you this one. So, bloke went into a fish and chip shop, and he said to the girl behind the counter, Have you got a copy of E.T.? She's like, no, mate. She said, we're a fish and chip shop. Video shop's next door. Next night he comes in again. He says, yeah, excuse me, love. Have you got Jaws 2? She's like, look, what did I tell you? She said, we're a fish and chip shop. Video shop's next door. Third night he comes in, and she's like, whoa, right. Before you've even begun, I've told you, we're a fish and chip shop. He says, yeah, I know. He says, can I have chips, mushy peas, and a fish called Wanda?
Fucking hell, Chris.
Think what my poor family have to go through, mate.
Pass me those pills.
So the screwdriver, in my desperate state to stay awake and high, still whizzing as they called it, I'd attempted one more job, which was to change the plug on the telly because the fuse had gone or something, right?
Probably not the best plan in your state, Chris.
Yeah.
No.
And I literally had fallen asleep in the middle of that job, and that was it. So I wake up, I want to go down the shop and get this pasty, and I could hear the kids kicking the football around outside my house. I lived in a fairly newish estate, and it was a small estate. So over the years, I'd always tried to be the kind of adult that was not like the adults when I was a kid. Because the adults when I was a kid, they was quite scary, you know. They shout at you, they hit you. You know, young people would find this like weird to understand. But back when I was a kid, any adult could come over and clock you.
Yeah.
You know, it's a funny thing. And very often they did it because they thought you were the kid that like was
nick their apples or
robbing their apples the night before. And you weren't even like, it was nothing to do with you. But this was, you know, I was walking through a fairground once. I think it's Plymouth actually. And my mum said, and I'm holding my ear, and my mum's like, "What's the matter with you?" I said, "Oh, that bloke over there, mum, just punched me." She's like, "What?" She said, "Why didn't you tell me?" Well, I didn't tell her because I thought that was normal. You know, I was just like, I just thought that was normal. You know, adults like punch the fuck out of fucking kids, and so I'd always tried not to be that kid, and it was amazing in that street. A lot of the kids in there, they were from single parent families because the council had bought up a lot of the private houses to rent out as you know, to single mothers and that kind of thing. And they'd always come running up, "Chris, would you play football with us? Would you take us trick or treating?" and this kind of thing. And so I got on really well with them, and I got on really well with all their parents. But of course now I'm not really that person anymore. I'm like this really bad alter ego of you know, this shell of a sort of person. And I could hear the kids outside, and I was too ashamed to go outside. You know, there was me. The clothes I had on, I'd stolen off a heroin dealer in Oakhampton because he'd robbed me for all my benefit money for gear one time.
I bet that was a chic look.
Oh, mate, it was. Yeah, I had these Nike trainers, and they were like 2 sizes too big for me. I looked like a high clown. Yeah, it was not good. The sleeping bag that I slept in for 18 months because I couldn't face going upstairs and sleeping on my own in a big double bed, being lonely. Plus the fact I couldn't afford to heat the house. So I just closed off the downstairs with a curtain I bought at a car boot sale, and I lived in the front room for 18 months. I slept on a sofa bed, which gradually fell apart, and I slept in this geezer sleeping bag. But this day, I'll get to the point. So it just got me thinking about like my own childhood, and I thought, Chris, you can't go out the door because of the state you're in. You've got these second-hand clothes that you stole. You've got track marks all up your arm. You're emaciated. Half of your car is in the kitchen because you took the engine out. You've been working on it in the kitchen. It's not, and in that moment, this was my epiphany, and I thought, what have you done to yourself, mate? What have you done to yourself? You used to be a handsome young Marine with an international business. People used to look up to you and respect you. I'd get home from a nightclub and I have all these girls' phone numbers in my pocket and be like, right, I think I'll call that one to you know, it's like, okay, it's all materialistic macho bullshit. We know that, but at least I had materialistic macho bullshit. Now I had nothing. I was just a shell of I was ashamed. Ashamed, and then I thought of that young toddler, you know, me as a toddler, and all the shit that I went through, and you know, I mean, one of the more pleasant things I went through was being driven 300 miles up north with my sister in the car in my dad's minivan. We're lying on carpet samples in the back because it was my dad's company car. He was a carpet salesman. We're all lying on carpet samples with our luggage because my mum's run away again up to our nan's up in Lincolnshire, 300 miles from bloody Devon. And I'm up there knowing this is the last time I'm ever going to see my dad again. And despite everything that had gone on over the year, you love your freaking dad, right? A boy loves his dad. And my sister's in the car. She's got this tape player. And my sister's always been a bit like, not so aware of the moment as I am. And she's playing ABBA. And it's going, breaking up is never easy, I know, but I had to go. Knowing me, knowing you, it's the best I can. And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. My dad's driving along with fucking tears running down his face, right? We got up to Lincolnshire. We get out the car. My sister's like, oh, I can't wait to see Mummy and Nan. And off she runs into the house. I'm like, you mental. We're never going to see our dad again. Do you not understand this is not a holiday? My dad reaches in the back, grabs our bags, just dumps them on the pavement. For the first time in his life, he threw his arms around me and said, I love you, son. And then I looked at him and he was crying. This is my dad.
I'm not surprised. I feel like crying.
He said, I love you so much, son. And he jumped in the car and he drove off and left me.
What are your eyes like, Chris?
Fucking hell.
I'm waving at my dad in the wing mirror. Like that. This is in my mind, I'm a child, so this is the last time I'm ever going to see my daddy again, and I'm like that. At this point, my mum comes out the house. She's like, "Oh, hiya. Where's your dad? Isn't he going to stop for a cup of tea?" I was like, "You're all mental. Yeah. None of you. You're just like, oh my god.
I think your story.
Kids, you're supposed to bloody look." So anyway,
I think your story, though, Chris, your story is obviously not identical to everybody else's out there, but we can all relate to parts of his life where maybe it's worse, maybe it's better, maybe it was easier to come out of what you've been through. Maybe that experience with your father. We've all experienced that in this traumatic world that we live in.
Tell you what, you fucking cracked me, Chris. I hadn't shed a tear for about 10 years.
Mate, I haven't come on to my tortoise bit yet. This one's going to like...
You asked the fucking question, Chris.
But seriously, I'm there in this squalor, and I just reflecting back on that little boy who cried when his tortoise died, because his tortoise Liz was my best friend in the whole world through all of this nonsense. And one day she just stopped moving in the middle of the grass, and I was like, huh? That's not working anymore. My mum come out. I said, Mum, why is Liz not moving? She said, well, Liz is dead, Chris. I just laid on it. My sister helped me paint R.I.P. with Hammerite red paint, the stuff you paint like on engine blocks and stuff, you know. And it's all we could find. It wasn't even paint. It was like this sealer shit. And we put R.I.P. Liz on this big bit of slate, and then my sister helped me bury her, and I just lay down on the grave crying my eyes out, crying and crying and crying, and just praying that Liz would just come back to life. Please, 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 please come back to life. You
see, me and our Chris here, we were brought up on a farm, and our dad was a butcher, so we never really got close to that many animals.
Yeah,
because we were used to. No, we did. I'm joking.
You used to seeing them vanish, disappear. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So to you, I understand that one, but it's like, anyway, yeah.
So, in this dark moment of the soul, I thought about that little boy, and I thought, Chris, it's all right to blame all these adults for doing this, that, and the other to you, but who's doing it to you now, mate?
Yeah.
Who's abusing you now?
Mm.
There was only one answer to that, wasn't it? It was me.
Yeah.
I was the one sticking needles in my arm. I couldn't blame anyone. And I said, who's the only person that can get you out of it? Well, that's me as well, isn't it? And this, I made a pledge. I said, look, Chris, you're nobody's fool, mate. People would laugh at you when you're addicted. I thought, you're nobody's fool. You can pull this back, mate, right? But you got to start putting the work in. So I made a promise that I cut down the gear. Rather than spending 80 quid a fortnight, it was all my money gone. I'd spend a tenner. I'd go through the process. They call it acting out, of doing the needle thing and all this bullshit. And I'd have me manic phase. I'd smash the place up probably a bit more. But then when it came time to crash, I would just crash. I wouldn't try to like fight that monster, you know, hold the beast off. I would just submit to it, sleep. But when I woke up, rather than just roll over in utter clinical depression, I would force myself to get up. I would throw the curtains open and I would say, "Good morning, sun. Thank you, sun as in like the sun in the sky. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity called life, because a lot of my mates are dead now and they would give anything to be here, and they certainly wouldn't be squandering it the way that I have been." And that was it. So I'd done 3 very important things on the enlightenment journey. I'd healed the past and left it behind, because I forgave my parent, you know.
You got to.
They was just living out. Yeah. They was just living out their trauma. They're all
victims.
I felt sorry for them that they hadn't got to where I'd got. They hadn't done the drug thing, so they hadn't had this dark night of the soul. Not that I'm recommending people take substances. So I forgave the past and left it behind because it doesn't exist. I became grateful for this moment, and I took action. And this action was the cutting down the gear. But also the next morning when I woke up, my first thought was to write, "Oh, this is awful, let's roll over." And I thought, no. Remember running that mile. If you give up now, okay. So I got up, I threw open the curtains. I said, "Morning, world. Thank you so much for this incredible existence." And I turned around. I thought, you know what? I'm going to make a nice cup of tea. Not all, you know, shoving nonsense in my bottle. I'm going to have a nice cup. And as I walked to the kitchen, this feeling enveloped me that I'd never experienced before. And I suddenly knew that I wasn't alone. I suddenly knew there's something else out there, like a big, nice cloud or a force field, some entity, some energy, and that everything was going to be all right for the rest of my life. And I could never go back now. I could never go back into the darkness. And that stuck with me, and it literally walked me into paradise. Those 3 things: heal the past, leave it, doesn't define you, forget what silly hat you wore in the military. No one cares about that. It's not important. What's important is what you do today to look after yourself, to love yourself, to understand your beautiful divine manifestation of the Almighty, the eternal energy, whatever anyone wants to call it. That you be grateful, because this life is utterly amazing. If you don't think it's amazing, you're not looking at it right, you know. And that's just your temporary mood. Yes. That will change, believe me. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And then take action. If you sit on your ass drinking, you know, cider and chain smoking rollies, not that I'm telling people not to, I've done plenty of that, right? It is very hard to feel good about yourself the next morning when you've got a hangover, you know. You take action and say, "Do you know what? I'm going to cut that shit out. I'm just going to do my best. I'll start with trying to go one night without it, you know." And then it gives you, and then you start learning things like 1 year no beer. Absolutely incredible thing to do. If you've got problems with the booze, get on 1 year no beer. I never did. I did everything myself. No church, no self-help groups, no nothing. And what happened is I grabbed this. I had this 70s world globe that I bought at the car boot sale, illuminating world globe. And I marked on it every single country on the planet that I wanted to visit. That's 86 countries across all 7 continents. And I went out and I traveled them all. I backpacked through every single country in North, Central and South America. I firewalked 120 feet over red hot coals to raise money to study as a volunteer instructor so I could go and teach street children in post-war Mozambique. While I was there, the organisation said, look, would you drive an old school bus from Norway to India and back so that you guys can write some articles?
As you do.
You guys can write articles about people living in poverty. I did a book signing on the Great Wall of China. I wrote 6 books. One of them, Eating Smoke, was an international bestseller. I'm a qualified pilot, qualified skydiver, advanced scuba diver. I've run the length of the United Kingdom, an ultra marathon every day for 36 days, carrying all my camping gear on my back and sleeping at the side of the road. I did a quadruple Ironman with only 8 weeks training to raise awareness of veteran suicide. I ran across the Sahara Desert in the famous MDS. I rowed across the Atlantic this year with my buddy Louis in a 21-foot rowing boat to raise awareness of veteran suicide and to shine a light for our brothers and sisters that are struggling. And I'm now in training, or at least in fundraising, to summit Everest in May. I've got, next to yours, I've got the best podcast in the world, which I'm immensely proud of. It's given me, Robbie Williams messaged me to say that I was the legend, which is quite a long way when you think I was.
Well, I actually say that to myself when I hear you say it.
Good.
There you go.
Don't stop. But when you think of me living in that squalor, sticking pins in my arm, crying over the little boy that I used to be, that shouldn't have gone through all that shit, to then have, a rock or pop megastar actually message you to say thanks for the energy, Chris. I call that a result. To walk through Heathrow Airport and see your book on the bestseller list, 1 below Gary Neville and 1 above James Corden. That was quite a result. And
that's some story, that is, Chris.
I bet you wish you never asked me now, didn't you?
No, I'm glad I asked, but
I'm glad I asked, and I bet not just our listeners, but when it goes on your channel, I bet your listeners will be happy, because it's difficult to talk about yourself, isn't it? It is difficult because
you seem to do all right.
Got to bring me into it again, haven't you, Chris? What about my feelings?
You got any feelings?
Apparently. But anyway, yeah. One question I wanted to ask you.
What's funny is when people say you're full of shit.
Oh, say you are?
You know what it's like when you're a content provider. You get all kind of maniacs come at you, don't you? And you get all these randoms. You do get a bit
thick-skinned now, don't you? You get very thick-skinned.
Well, you just see it for what it is.
Yeah.
You think, oh my God, first off, this person really doesn't understand that there's things called search engines out there, that you can, everything that I've said, you can go and find out for yourself and see the photographs of it. I'm also, sorry, but to really kind of show off, I was awarded English Veteran of the Year for inspiration. And
I can't understand why anyone would make them stories up anyway, Chris, to be fair.
Yeah, the reason I mention that, though, is like I was hounded by a guy for being a Walter Mitty.
Right.
Which, as you know, is what Americans call stolen valor.
Yeah.
And it was after, I think I was on Sean Atwood's podcast, and they were like, and this guy, he was actually ex-Navy. And he was like, this guy's never been in the Royal Marines. I'm like, oh, dude, don't embarrass yourself. Literally a quick Google search, and you'll probably see loads of photos, or at least one photo of me in my uniform, or doing, I host the largest reunion in the Royal Marines every single year. I think someone
There'll be a couple of pictures.
might have rumbled me by now. Do you know what I mean? And
I mean, there are charlatans out there, don't get me wrong, because in my world, just a few months ago, a doctor, well, he said he was a doctor, said he was a vascular surgeon in our alternative world. Turns out he wasn't even a doctor. Didn't even want anything to do with health. And he had all these junior doctors working for him that he'd lied to.
Yeah.
So they've closed all his clinics down. Some guy put a load of investment into his business as well. So
if you look at the the medical scam, you don't actually need to know anything to be a doctor, though, do you?
No, not really.
Bill Gates does. He knows everything about it.
You just got to copy what the BBC tell you to say, and
keep everyone up to date with the vaccination program.
So one question I've always wanted to ask you, Chris. You spent a lot of time in Gaza.
Me?
Yeah. Or some time in Gaza, didn't you?
Not Gaza. I've been in West Bank on a few occasions.
What was your experience there?
Wow. So, first off, it's quite intimidating. It's driving into Gaza on your into West Bank on your own.
Right. In what way?
Well, in the way that there's a whole lot of stuff going on, isn't there? There are some very serious people around. There's lots of weapons. You're a Westerner, so you could be perceived. And there's a lot of confusion between Islamic extremists and these innocent Palestinians. And I say innocent because they're bloody beautiful people. And I'm not a twat, guys.
Yeah.
I've lived in 86 countries across all 7 continents. If I tell you they're a good people, you know, you can take that to the bank, right? What's happened is the cabal and their shills trying to muddy the water and liken the people over there to Islamic radical extremists in order to support the division narrative. And as you know, the empire, the empires, they go forward, they rape, pillage and rake everything that they can, and when they financially get to their last legs and they can't defend themselves, like in the north of England, where you guys live, then what they do is they pull back. But they pull back, they leave their structure in place. So they leave their secret societies, their debt-based banking, financial system. And of course, the biggest one is they leave organized religion. So, Catholicism or whatever it might be. And what they're doing now is these organized religions, they're playing them off against each other and divide. They're playing the old division game, and they're trying to stir up hatred between people that think they're Christians and Islamists. And I say think they're Christians because there's a mass misunderstanding going on here. And that is, Jesus didn't come here to tell you how brilliant he was. He came here to show you how brilliant you are. And that's a journey within, it's not an external thing. You can't put stuff on the wall or build little structures and go and sing and that, and that literally will do nothing for your life unless you happen to like going and meeting people, for coffee on a Sunday and singing nice songs. And I'm not judging people if that's their thing, right? I'm saying the whole enlightenment thing, which is serotonin and DMT, just living a frugal life. If you live in a certain way, you produce serotonin and DMT, and that is the passage to enlightenment. This is what was happening to me that morning when I'd done the thing. I'd said, leave the past behind, be grateful, take action. As a result, I'd sent energy to my pineal, my pituitary, which I'd never done before because I didn't know how. That allows you to access the right hemisphere of your brain, which is the most unused part of most people's, most people's brains. And when you access that, you suddenly understand peace, love, empathy, kindness, but you develop something called gnosis, which is knowing. So it's knowing. So, when we've talked about certain hot topics that are I'm like, they're not controversial when you have gnosis. Because you look at things from a perspective of energy, vibration, and frequency. So What was the original question?
What was the experience like?
Oh, right, yeah.
In West, I thought it was Gaza, but the West Bank. Yeah.
So here's the situation. What you've got? You had a land. It had sort of semi-nomadic Arabs living on it. You know, desert dwellers. Very hospitable people. Why? Because in the desert, you got to look after one another. So if you come my way, Don, one day on your camel, and you haven't drunk for 3 days and you're starving, first thing I do is I get my dates out and my water bladder, and I'm like, half of this is yours. Half of it is yours, right? Totally alien to our culture. Our culture is like, this is fucking mine, and yours is fuck off, mate.
Yeah, die bastard. Yeah. And I'll take die bastard. I'll take your camel.
So there were these these wonderful people living their desert dwelling, nomadic, semi-nomadic lifestyle, moving up and down this region. It wasn't a country because they were there long before we had things called countries. And then you had a family called the Rothschilds, who were part of
they again?
They're part of an international cabal.
He was being sarcastic there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get it. I didn't really, but I say I get it. I look smart then, don't I? Yeah. But the Rothschilds, they're part of something called Sabbatean Frankism, or the cult of Saturn. This is these maniacs that put these black cubes everywhere around the world. There's one on top of Trump Towers in Atlantic City or wherever it is. And it's just symbolic of the black cube is the north pole of Saturn. It's the gases up there form this... I never know the name. I'm not good with like a hexagon shape. And when you look at it 3D, a hexagon will look like a cube, right?
Yeah. It's scary, isn't it, that a lot of people still... don't think that symbols and things are important in it's not like the research that you do or we do, but they drive more or less all culture, don't they? Well, not the symbols themselves, but the reason they're there.
So it goes back to a time when Saturn used to be the Earth's sun, or this is what alleged. Obviously, I didn't live back then. I can't vouch for this stuff. But they said what it used to do is cast a purple hue on Earth. And the temperature was much warmer, so we lived in abundance. Yeah,
that's man-made climate change.
There you go. But what happened is because of the gases and the explosions that were going off with Saturn, it cast this appearance of an eye looking down at you. So that's where you get your one eye symbolism. It's not the eye of Horus that we thought, although that's obviously also an important esoteric symbol if you go back to Babylon. And these maniacs, they I'm talking about the cabal now. They operate along the lines of a dark form of Kabbalah, hence the name Cabal. And they followed a chap. There was a chap called Sabbatai Zevi. I'm sure you're probably aware of him, who came to the forefront back in 1666 when he declared himself the new Messiah. And he had this massive following from Judaism. And this is where it gets complicated, because Judaism isn't a thing. Scripture is an allegory. It's not a history or a geography story. It's about what happens within you. Everything in it is an allegorical reference to your biochemical workings and your passage to enlightenment. So when it talks about Israelites leaving Egypt, it's talking about enlightened thought. That's Israel, Isis, Ra, and Elohim, masculine energy, feminine energy. Therefore, you get the gods, you get the Holy Spirit, right? It's just living this frugal life. This is what happens in your brain. They call it Israel. And when you have that, you start to think enlightened. You think, how can I be nice to people instead of always trying to make off people? Then irony is that raises your frequency, and the universe then meets you at that frequency. So you become this ever sort of more happier, balanced, kind and giving sort of person, right? So that's enlightened thought. So you've got your enlightened thought leaving Egypt. Egypt is bondage to lower self, so material desires. You cross the Red Sea. Red is emotion, because most people are controlled by their emotions. You have to get over that. Leave your five senses behind. And when you do that, you enter a place where your pineal and your pituitary click in. They're producing serotonin and DMT. That fuels the force field, the torus field within you. You have one in your brain, but you have one in your actual body as well, and that is within the torus field of life, the universe. This is where you're making that connection. So when people are in the matrix, none of that is happening in their life. They're literally in that program.
I was speaking to someone earlier on, and she was saying, "Oh, there's a lot of stuff going around, coughs and stuff." She was saying one school's closed down by her because there's been an emergency. I said, "Do you think it's got anything to do with all the current flu jabs they've just given kids, nasal sprays and that?" She went,
"Criminal."
She went, "No, that were about a month ago. That it wouldn't be able to do with that."
Yeah, I can come on and tell you about that, because that's something I'm really hot on. I'm yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is she's still trapped in the matrix.
Oh,
still
yeah.
cannot even think that, and she's a lovely woman, right? There's nothing, but brilliant woman, but she's still trapped in that world.
Cult of Saturn, Sabbatean Frankism. This is what all these guys sign up to. This is why your celebrities always doing the one eye thing.
What did Robbie Williams say when you asked him that question? Didn't you ask him that question? I'm sure.
Yeah, he I can't really talk about one of my guests, can I?
No, I'm sure he was a great guy, but me and Chris have this theory, right, that the people that are having the picture taken possibly don't even know why they're doing that symbol. Yeah, some of them do, and some of them don't. It only takes one photographer to be in the club and tell people to put their hand over eye. I mean, you found a couple of Aleister Crowley's spawn, didn't you, Chris? Working within the film industry, working within in politics. One of them was Boris Johnson's advisor, and another one worked for
Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Nolan. He is a set designer.
So I asked Rob that question, obviously, what's with all the one eye bullshit and all that, and his answer's there in the podcast if people want to watch it. He's like, "Chris, I don't know. No one's ever come up to me and said, oi, I asked a Hollywood photographer who came on my show. I said, so come on then, tell us, why are the celebrities doing all this, And he's like, I don't know, Chris. He said, they just do it. You start taking a photo, and the next thing they do, they're all covering one eye. And so here's how it is.
But if we have a picture taken, Chris, right? If all three of us, I guarantee I'll go through my phone. No one's got their hand over their eye, and no one's doing devil horns.
Yeah,
not in the way that it's done on those pictures.
Not yet, mate. But just remember, the door isn't closed on this club for us. If we play our cards right,
we could join, couldn't we?
Yeah, I think if we slaughter a couple of lambs and
one thing I would say, Chris, is regardless of whether the history, you were saying it, but regardless of everything, there is a black cube Saturn worship going on, regardless of what the history is or Saturn.
Yeah,
because you've seen the Mecca thing and the little cubes on people's
heads. 9/11, whatever statue.
They're everywhere, aren't they? It is literally everywhere.
If you look at 9/11, they've done the inverse, haven't they? They've now built that waterfall, which is an inverted black cube.
It's an abyss, yeah.
And what it is for the celebrities, so the music industry, and you can work this out for yourself. This is not rocket science. Why have you been bombarded your whole life with lovey-dovey songs about the woman running away from you, or the bloke who's left you, or you're so sad in love you got to cry your eye? This is the cult. This is their programming. They don't want you to realize you're a massive legend. You don't need a partner. And the irony is, it's not until you realize that you're a well-balanced, happy, giving, loving person that doesn't need nothing from no one that you actually become good partner material. That's when you want to. That's when you want to, right? So that's the music industry, okay? To sign up for it, they've got hundreds of thousands of incredible talent, of which Rob is one. He's a lovely bloke, and he's mega talented, right? He's got more talent in his little finger You know, these guys, they don't just sing, they can dance, they can, you know, break dance, they can rap, they can act, all this kind of stuff. But they've got such a big pool of this amazing talent, is they can say, right, we'll take you on, but you got to kind of sign on a certain dotted line. And when we tell you to do something, like when we tell you to go out and do an advert pushing a certain medical procedure on families and their children, you got to do it, son. When we say there's a benefit concert because something may or may not have gone bang in a certain city, and we've got to create this divide between Islam and the Christians, so you're going to go and sing in that benefit concert, son, all right? And this is where you see the same people trolled out. And at what cost? They know they're selling their souls, and they also know that now the public are aware, you know, a good percentage of the public are aware. I mean, David Beckham, for example, I mean, no personal harm or disrespect to him whatsoever, but you had my utmost admiration when you put that free kick in from the halfway line. You were a god to me. That's all you needed to do. Then when you was a multi-millionaire, to top up your coffers, you went and told people to stick toxic stuff in their children. Why did you do that, mate? Why did you do something on? And this is how it works. You know, if I say Santa's little helpers, I think you know the Santa I'm referring to, right? Yeah. The Hollywood, what's that? You think, oh, these guys are those mega actors, they're Mickey Rourke there, and you know, bloody Robert De Niro, and I look at it realistically. They're all selling a narrative. The massive transgender gayism thing is, you know, what film are they going to bring out next that tells us that being abnormal is normal? And I mean, sorry, that sounded a bit disrespectful, but I mean...
Did you see that story? Did I tell you, Chris? Or but you were telling me? That story about that guy getting arrested in Switzerland. He's now in jail because he wouldn't pay the fine because he went on Twitter and dared to say that a man's skeleton and a women's skeleton are totally different, so they can't possibly... A man can't be a... Yeah.
I learned that in school. I remember him telling us that in school, that the only way you can tell is by the hip bones.
Yeah. And anyway, he's in jail now in Switzerland.
Yeah. Well, they're drawing attention to a lot of the celebrities, aren't they? A lot of these singers for the kids and that. They're when they point out the skeletal features, you can go, oh, actually, that's a bloke, isn't it? You know? You've got to remember, you've got a president of the biggest superpower in the world who married to a man. I'm not saying which superpower.
Oh, which man?
And then you've got another superpower. Another superpower. I'm not saying which one. Ooh la la. He's also married to a man. It's like this is Sabbatean Frankism. This is the getting people in their lower animal self in a materialistic desire, where you get short-term gain, but you spend a lifetime in hell. You'll never know this enlightenment of which we talk. The Hollywood narrative, once you get behind the glamour and thinking these people are like somehow really, you know, and I'm not saying they're not good actors. What their function is to sell society on the hero story, so that you're all freaking losers in life and don't ever expect to be anything more than a loser. That's all you are. Because you haven't had this adversity suddenly come into your life, and you haven't got over that adversity, shot all the bad guys, climbed the Everest, won that rugby match, and then got the adoration of everyone because you've actually become a worthwhile human being. That's the function. This is why you get people saying, you know, oh, hi, Chris, I was never in the Marines, but I'm like, what kind of way is that to introduce yourself? What, so you was never a paid killer and you think that was a bad thing? Are you mental? Have you not you know, I know people they haven't worked all this out yet, but I'm just showing the absolute insanity in society and the subtle brainwashing that's got us to where we are. Going back to the cult of Saturn, the biggest mechanism they use is the medical one. They want victim culture. They want people believing in a non-existent bogeyman that physically cannot exist, so that when they get ill from their toxic carbohydrate diet, which is grains, you know, factory-produced, farm-produced grains, eaten in such abundance. So to eat a bowl of rice, that would take you like a year to collect in the nature, right? But because we can now farm it in big rice paddies, you can eat 3 bowls of that a day if you want.
I often say that when people are eating meat, for instance. All right, let's just say it's brought up on a farm. Because we were brought up on a farm and our dad were a butcher, you saw the whole process. A cow calved, sheep had lambs, eventually they grew up, they got slaughtered, and you cut them up in the shop, for argument's sake. You went through that whole process. You respected that animal. Probably quite sacred, really, at our house, Chris, wasn't it? Food.
Probably why I don't eat meat anymore.
Yeah, but nothing was left. We weren't religious, no, but nothing was wasted. Even down to the bones were boiled up, and the dogs ended up eating them, or whatever, right? Now, because we live in that society where it's just in a plastic package, you stick a fork in it and put it in a microwave, for argument's sake. There's no respect there for that animal that's died. Or anything. And that's only one thing, isn't it? That's only one thing. You just put it in your mouth, it doesn't matter what it is, and we're quite willing to self-harm.
Yeah. It's like, this is the reason I don't eat meat. I mean, I've been pretty much plant-based for 20 years. Anyone that watches my channel knows I never get ill because I'm very, very big on the pH balance. When you understand, when you crack this, then you understand. Again, it's just this thing that's been hidden by the cabal. They want victims. They want people getting ill from an invisible bogeyman that doesn't exist and blaming it on other people, not realizing it's a byproduct of the toxic carbohydrate diet that everyone eats. The chips, the pasta, the spaghetti, the rice, the toast, the biscuits, the cake, It puts so much glucose into your bloodstream that your cells become overwhelmed, they become acidic, and they can't function. And when your cell can't function, it has to detox itself, otherwise you're going to die, because that cell will start mutating into something we call cancer. So it has to detox you. And you got all this stuff flinging out your nose and every orifice, and you know, and that's your body healing itself. And what Cabal have done is they've hidden this from people, and instead they've branded it, they've marketed it as a bogeyman that can jump from one person into the other. And because your parents told you this, and because their parents told that, this goes back 150 years to Louis Pasteur versus Antoine Béchamp, which is terrain theory, right? Because it's been 150 years of this medieval superstitious brainwashing, people today still believe when their well-being suffers, it's because of other people.
And all that, Pasteur even went back on what his findings were while he was alive, and said he didn't. He's actually stopped believing in his own work, to put it bluntly. Anybody who doesn't think that your terrain's important to your health must be insane.
Yeah. Pasteur, do you know what he asked to have put on his gravestone?
Go on.
I'm a knob.
You got me then, actually, Chris. I thought you were...
No, the famous quote is
there's
that
a famous quote on it, isn't there? Yeah.
On his deathbed, he said Béchamp was right. Of course, illness comes from within. You know, I'm not talking about getting poisoned in the environment or something. I'm talking about the illness that we call illness. It's self-inflicted. And this is a massive cabal mechanism of control. And now that the cat's out the bag, it's only going to get, you know, it's only going to get bigger.
While we're talking about Pasteur, let's talk about 2020. Did you get a load of shit in 2020 when you started talking out about it?
My journey was fairly simple there. I heard about it. I immediately thought, right, are they going to explain to people that you need to have a pH neutral bloodstream or body tissues? Therefore, you physically cannot experience, I'm going to call it this thing, right? Because this thing comes from within you. It can't come from other sort. Or are they going to brainwash people with the old superstitious bogeyman narrative where it gets everyone to blame their well-being on Dave in the pub? And they did that one, didn't they? Right? And they made it a very scary, frightening Dave in the pub and, Susie Wong in China and all this kind of nonsense. And when you understand it from a terrain perspective, that they're gaslighting, they cabal control everything. They funded all the research for 150 years to make people believe that, these things, pathogen is a thing. It's taken a thick ex-Marine to come on your show and tell the public, like, you don't have to be that bright to work this out, folks.
No, you don't.
You just got to be willing to step outside of that matrix. They locked every single person on the planet in their homes for 2 years.
Control lies.
Yeah, except a few of us legend that said, screw you, we're not doing that.
I hope you were on your doorstep, Chris. I hope you're on your doorstep every Thursday banging your pots and pans.
Oh, man. And every professional went along with it. This is the level of the indoctrination. Nobody came to my door and said, Chris, is it true you've never been ill for 20 years, ever? That you can go in a room with, Sid there, he's got this quote unquote virus and he's got the flu, and you can walk through that. You can even snog them and you're never going to contract that. Yes, that's absolutely true. Okay, we need to speak to you, Chris, don't we? Because you're clearly doing something different in your life than the mainstream. Yes, it's called eating vegetables. I'm not talking about carbohydrate stuff. Do you know vegans die younger than carnivores, don't you?
We're doing a podcast on it. Yeah.
It's because vegans think, I'm being really healthy eating chips every day and pasta because I'm
cake. Yeah.
I'm not. And I don't mean that. When I talk about plant-based, I mean eating vegetables, green, chlorophyll from the sun, because we're a prime being. Our prime source of food is that energy from the sun. Our prime source of information is comes in photons, comes in the form of light. We are human, hue as in the color spectrum, right? This is why when you start to see stuff in these terms, you can see how much Mickey Mouse stuff is being floated out there. And so I saw that. I then saw that various groups, veterans groups, were trying to get off the ground in their manner of going up against this. And immediately I could see problems in, they meant really, really well, but they were getting themselves in trouble right from the get-go by, being recorded, sat outside pubs discussing, can I say tactics, if you know what I mean? I don't want to get your podcast in trouble, but talking about silly stuff and things that go bang. And immediately when you understand it's an energy battle, it's energy, vibration, frequency. When you resort to that, you got to play these people at their own game. It's the spiritual warfare. This is what it is. And using old school 3D carbon-based methods, they might get a short-term result. Yeah, I'd love it if the veterans would go in schools and stop Richard Branson sticking the kids, because that's what he's doing at the moment.
It is.
They go in there regularly with this phony thing. And the headmasters, they're all so brainwashed, they just go along with it because they think this is in the name of, they don't understand. And, I'd love it if everyone got up and barricaded the school gate and said, you ain't coming in here, you ain't not doing this anymore.
But they won't, because the lady I was talking to earlier on, most of the parents actually think it's a thing, that it does spread around school.
I didn't realise Richard Branson were doing it.
Oh, Richard Branson, yeah, he's been pushing all sorts of stuff.
Virgin Healthcare do the procedure.
Yeah,
They certainly do down our way. You have to actually write to Virgin to ask them not to stick your kid.
Yeah. I had to
At
fill
which
in the
point
thing,
I
yeah.
phoned the school. I said, I ain't doing that. I'm not giving my details to a private company to explain to them that I don't want them putting their, product.
We did a full show on Richard Branson, didn't we, Chris? Yeah.
Yeah, he's
on his genealogy and all, a lot of other stuff.
Yeah. Virgin. This is some Babylonian symbolism.
He used to. I've got a video of him. He had his Virgin Records, and in another office, he had I called it Virgin Abortion Clinic, but he advised women on abortions. This was in a BBC documentary in 1970.
Yeah.
That's Richard Branson.
Yeah.
Odd family. Whether he got the jab or not, there's pictures of him rolling his sleeve up in 2021 saying, everybody get your jab, that type of thing. And his wife's just passed away, hasn't she?
Mm.
Yeah, she was quite old apparently, but
yeah, she was in her 80s, wasn't she? Yeah.
But this is it. It all seems kind of crazy until you understand that Sabbatean Frankism or cult of Saturn, and then it's like, oh right, it's these maniacs again.
I said to one of the nurses that work for us at our clinic, I said, we were talking about jabs. This is someone else. And I said, all right, then. So the people that bring these things in, let's just say it was Boris Johnson. Would you leave your kids with him? No. Would I? I wouldn't trust him. Keir Starmer, would you leave your kids with him? No. So why are you taking their advice? She wouldn't answer it, obviously. Because...
Some Ukrainian parents, they've left their kids with Keir Starmer, though, haven't they?
Yeah. Set fire to his bins, didn't they?
They keep setting fire to his car.
It's in the news at the minute.
About? Is it still in the news, Chris?
No, I was going to say it's in the. What I was just thinking is that us three must be psychic geniuses because it's in the news now that it's not long COVID. It could be jab damage. No shit, Sherlock. 6 years later, we knew that was going to happen 6 years ago. Yeah. Everything we discussed has actually come into fruition, if you like. Now lockdowns were too harsh. All this stuff you just see in the news now that we talked about in 2021, say for instance. Sorry,
it's
Chris.
Gaslighting, though, isn't it? They will talk about all this stuff. They don't care. What they don't want you to understand is that these things do not exist.
Yes.
And it's so hard for people because but what about like the AIDS? You can't say that's not. No one's saying it's not a thing. Illness is not a thing. What they're saying is what you're being told is a bit Mickey Mouse. So let's just take that one because this is fascinating, right? You've got these Mickey Mouse medical procedures, right, which are just basically, they're not even experimental, they're satanic. They're just solely designed to maim and take out and cause inflictions on people for life. So they have to go back to the very industry that inflicted it on them to ask for medication to, and they're a satanic cult. So they don't care about your little Johnny if he grows up with Asperger's or some hideous skin
Asthma
condition, right? So that's that. So they come up with these Mickey Mouse, I'm going to call them procedures, right? And they send them to the gay community because they say, hey guys, you're all party lifestyle, unprotected, you know what, you're at risk, right? You need one of these ones. So they they take one for the team.
It was a HEP, wasn't it? HEP.
Yeah. Then they say, oh, what about those drug sharers? Because they're sharing needles. They're living a they should have one of these little, one of these procedures. Yeah. And what about those vulnerable sub-Saharan Africans who completely wouldn't even understand what the hell it was that they were being subject. Let's ship a load of these products down there and we'll get a load of that lot with it, right? That's why you had this random thing. It was
Ebola, wasn't it? When Although they've got a lot of AIDS issues there and HIV.
But it was the same. It was the same playbook as COVID, wasn't it? If you were HIV positive, you could have no symptoms whatsoever. But you went to a doctor, he said you're HIV positive, then he give you the drugs, and then all of a sudden you get full blown.
What did they test them with, guys? What did they test
PCR
them
test,
with?
wasn't it?
Yeah.
PCR test, not to be used ever in any circumstances to determine a V, right?
Yeah. In Kerry Mullis's terms, he said he could find a dinosaur in your blood if you wanted to.
But it were very much the same playbook as COVID, wasn't it? Really?
Do you know we're looking after all that, Chris, down in Africa?
Fauci, were it?
Chris Whitty.
Was it? Right.
Yeah.
Chris Whitty, Nobed Ferguson, and a guy called Farrer, who was, at the time, CEO of the Wellcome Trust. Sir Jeremy Farrer. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was it. So these people, you know, the sub-Saharan Africans, they just eat carbohydrate, full stop. There's something called, in Mozambique, it was called chima when I worked there. And it's these big grain sacks that come from the US under the guise of the food program. But really, it's just, you know, we'll give you these food. We'll take your diamonds and your gold and your fish and your copper in return.
Everything of
it's a
value.
big scam.
Shit. Yeah.
But you can't just live on carbohydrate. It's completely toxic to you. So you go to your doctor then, and in some village, you wouldn't go to your doctor because you wouldn't probably have the money. But you go to your doctor then, he's like, oh, yes, I know what's going on in this equation. You have got the AIDS. You know, here's a test. You must be doing this test. And of course, you do a test which is 100% guaranteed to tell you what the test has been programmed to. And then okay, now you must take this medication. They don't tell you that stuff's going to kill you, and it does. Yeah. And when it does, they tell you, "Oh, the guy died of that thing."
Remember that
COVID playbook, isn't it?
Remember that presentation we did, Chris, where we showed Tom Hanks at the same time as all the AIDS stuff made Philadelphia. I know it was a few years after the AIDS stuff, but he was at the forefront of all these films that were basically culture creating, like Forrest Gump was pushing.
Every film he's done has been an empire-based film, hasn't it?
Yes, empire-based film.
What was Forrest Gump making it?
Well, that was selling autism, I suppose, wasn't it?
Yeah.
To an extent. Plus a number
it's
of
okay to be a retard.
Yes. Yeah, no disrespect to anyone.
And it just happens by chance.
Yeah. I was joking then, by the way.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. But he was an agenda. All his films have been agenda-led films, is what we were trying to say.
Yeah.
It's ironic, isn't it, that they push that narrative in Forrest Gump, and then in Tropic Thunder, it's like never go full retard.
Oh, yeah, it does say that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr.
But yeah, of course, like I said, every film's an agenda, and Spielberg and Hanks is the deadly duo, aren't they? You know, traumatize a whole generation about going in the water. Well, Spielberg done that to a T, didn't he? You know, I'm still scared to get in the bloody bath when it's empty. You know, an old Tom, he's kind of. Did you see the thing with his gloves?
We've seen a lot of things with Tom. Done his genealogy, his full genealogy, Chris.
Yeah.
Go on.
Do you know the thing, though, about the code written on the pavement?
Go on. I did see this the other day, actually, Chris.
Yeah. So old Hanks, as he referred to himself to, went through this weird ritual of posting objects he found on the street when he was, I suppose, out walking, if Hollywood celebrities go out walking on the street. And he'd post them to his Twitter. And they were quite almost like eerie.
Like kids' shoes.
It would be like a baby's toy or something left in the gutter. And one of them was a glove. And next to the glove, in paint on the tarmac, was written what appeared to be a number, maybe a number and a letter. I can't quite remember what it was. And then what happened is someone realised someone typed this number into Yandex, the Russian search engine. And guess what came up when you type that? All the kiddie stuff. And when you see that, and then you start to make those links with Steven Spielberg, Steven Spielberg's job is to keep cementing the second world. Let's keep hating the Germans. Let's keep ostracizing the mustache man. You know, instead of telling the truth like some of the great historians have done and say, like, none of that's true. It's just not true. You know, and that's Spielberg's job. You know, Saving Private Ryan, all the Auschwitz ones that they do, and all this kind of stuff is keep cementing that narrative in people's mind, because off the back of it, they create their fiefdom of Israel.
I think he's got a new Alien film coming out as well, Steven Spielberg. So he's selling whatever that means, the alien agenda, wherever that goes or whatever it means. He's making another one, right?
Yeah, well, that's another thing again, isn't it? All this disclosure stuff. It's such a distraction. Such a distraction simply from the perspective. Why don't we just sort out like this planet and how we live? And
we definitely don't need to go to Mars, do we?
Yeah. Well, even though we can't get there. Entertaining the thought. I mean, if people want to have an interest in aliens, absolutely fine. That's not a problem. But let's not like make it a thing. Yeah. You know, let's sort out the pollution first and the energy crisis.
And the fact that the whole world's run by satanic psychopaths.
First, that one as well. Yeah.
So I know Chris has got to get off to pick his young'un up from school. So I just heard him then look with a look of panic on his face.
You can see me fidgeting about.
I could see you fidgeting. Yeah. Although I'd love to carry on, we'll have to do it again at some point because
fascinating stuff that Chris. Really enjoyed.
I think what we should do with this, Chris, is break it into two. The first hour was your story, or wherever that finishes. The second hour is our stuff, and we'll release it over two parts if you want.
Absolutely.
What do you say about that, Chris?
It's up to you. Up to you.
I think there is a defining split, though, isn't there? There is a defining split.
I don't know, though. I think understanding my backstory helps people to know that 100%. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Credibility. Yeah, too right. Yeah. Or whatever. Anyway, I'll release it in one.
Fascinating stuff, Chris. Yeah. I can't believe you actually made it through all that. That's what I was thinking. Bloody hell.
It's been a... You know, I just say it's been a good life. You know, there's no such thing as bad experiences.
You don't learn anything from all good experiences, do you? You learn everything from bad experiences, don't you? Unfortunately,
that's the downside. Yeah,
we need the time and the weights and measurements of your porridge and pasta dish.
Chris, I'll invite you guys round one night. Chris is a chef, that's why he's asking that.
No, I'm joking.
Or as you guys in the military used to call them, cabbage mechanics.
Yeah. Is that what they call us?
I think. Well, some at forces do. My mate who were in forces, he used to call him. He was a chef, and he used to call him a cabbage mechanic.
Give a plug to your podcast YouTube.
Yes, so I am, as you can see on the hoodie, the Bought the T-shirt podcast, but really I'm Chris Thrall on YouTube. We're coming up now to, we've been trying to come up to 100,000 subscribers for a while now, but we're certainly going that way. All my books are available on Amazon. My website is christhrall.com. If anyone can support me with a $5 to shine a light for struggling veterans in this current suicide epidemic that we're facing, I'll be climbing Mount Everest starting in April. My mission is to raise awareness of the link between childhood trauma and PTSD, because as you can see from my story, the bang stuff in combat, that was quite fun. It's the childhood stuff that puts you on a dodgy wicket when you leave the military, and other stuff you might experience in theatre. But that's my mission. It's gofundme.com/challenge Everest. And I'm Chris Thrall on all socials except Instagram, where I'm chris.thrall.
I wanted to talk about the obviously the veteran thing as well. Chris, would have to get you back on to talk about that more.
Yeah, we'll have another one.
How the veterans are looked after.
Yeah. It's this. I mean, I've got lots of historical war books. Obviously, I went down the conventional way first. Max Hastings and all them other tools, and then you go down the other road, obviously, with Anthony C. Sutton, etc., explaining how World War II was funded and Vietnam. And also, I'm into collecting World War I diaries of people who were actually in the trenches, telling you how it really was, not necessarily how we've been sold it, but
Awesome.
and how they were looked after afterwards, where a lot of them would just had to sell the VC medals and what have you to live, just to scrape an existence. They'd run, they were heroes when they came back, left to rot when they got home.
I'd love to hear more about that on my show, so please come on and talk about that.
Yeah.
I heard that, they make out this football match at Christmas was a one-off. I heard that that was the norm, that the Germans and the English wouldn't shoot each other because it's just nonsense. So they used to all be like friends and piss up together, and then when the bigwigs, the top brass, came round, they'd all run back to their own trenches and fire a few rounds across. And I think that certainly fits more with.
Well, a lot of them, especially the officer class, a lot of them studied in Germany and studied in England, or there was the German embassy or whatever, and they all knew each other. So I've said all of them. A lot of them knew each other, and a lot of them had links, obviously, if they were in the aristocracy with the German aristocracy. The nobilities were very close. The English and German, not just the royal families, but just the nobilities in general. So a lot of the officer class were part of that, wasn't it? Sorry, Chris, you're going to have to go.
Chris, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to have to jet. I'll leave you two to it.
I will go home, then I will die. I'll be a part of the oceans and sky. When I was young, be